Hey guys, it's Raul again, and today I'm going to be doing the monthly recommendations for the month of March. So as always, Monthly Recommendations is a group that was created by Trina from Between Chapters and Kayla from the channel Kayla Rain. I will link their pages down below, as well as the Goodreads groups for you guys to join in and start recommending books with us every single month, according to whatever topic it is for that month. So for the month of March, the topic is standalones. And I have a lot of standalone books here. A lot of standalone books that I've mentioned in other previous recommendation videos, so some of those I won't mention. Some of these are very obvious choices, so I will just briefly go through them before I get to some of the other books that I don't really usually talk about that much on my channel, so let's just go ahead and get started. So obvious choice number one is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I won't really say much about this book, because if you haven't read it, you need to. And everybody kind of knows what it's about, so read it if you haven't. The next book, if you guys have been watching my channel for a couple of months already, was my favorite book of last year, and that was The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde. This is a beautifully tragic story of Oscar Wilde and kind of his life, and him looking for love. It's just absolutely wonderful, beautifully written. If you are Hispanic, you will understand a lot of the things going on, and a lot of the phrases being said in this book. It was just wonderful. I feel like some people might have a little bit of trouble kind of, following along with the story, so it definitely isn't for everybody, but I absolutely loved it, and this is definitely one that I recommend personally. The next obvious choice is one that a lot of people have mentioned already in their videos, and that is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This is the book that I just recently finished, or read in February. I didn't do a February wrap-up because this is the only book that I ended up finishing in the month of February, so I'll just be combining it with my March wrap-up, and more of my thoughts and feelings will be in that video at the end of March. But this book was just absolutely amazing. I absolutely loved it. It is about a circus that shows up kind of out of nowhere, and these two magicians that are having this competition in the middle of the circus, and kind of everything that revolves around this competition and the circus. It is just absolutely wonderful, absolutely beautifully written. I just absolutely loved it. If you guys have not read The Night Circus, definitely do, because this is almost perfect. So yeah, definitely read this one. Another book that I have mentioned so many times on this channel is We All Looked Up by Tommy Wallach. Another one of my favorite books of last year, about these four kids and kind of their story of them and their lives as this comet is heading to Earth and potentially can destroy all life on the planet. So it's their story kind of revolving around that and kind of their uncertain futures and them going on, or trying to go on with their lives as these things are going on. I absolutely loved it. Read it if you haven't. I know a lot of places have this at a discount price, so this is, I think, the perfect time to pick this up, just because it's so cheap everywhere, and that way you don't really have to spend too much money on this if you do end up not enjoying it, because I know this has gotten mixed reviews, but I personally loved it. Another obvious choice is one that a lot of people have mentioned already in their videos, and that is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell, or anything by Rainbow Rowell. But this is the only thing that I've read by Rainbow Rowell, so this is what I'm recommending. This I absolutely loved. This was absolutely wonderful, about a girl named Kath going to college, and kind of a story of self-discovery, and it's just, I absolutely loved it. It's beautifully written. I felt like I connected surprisingly well with the characters. I absolutely loved it. This is just so wonderful, so wonderful. If you haven't read Fangirl, definitely do. Now moving on to some of the books that I don't really mention too much on my channel, and the first one being Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden. Now this is one of my favorite books of all time. I don't think I've mentioned it here before. I'm not sure if I have or not. But, like I said, one of my favorite books of all time, about this girl who is a geisha, and kind of her life as she's being trained to become a geisha. Right at the beginning of it, she's taken away from her parents, her and her sister, to, become geisha and that kind of thing. If you guys have watched the movie at all, this is definitely a way better version, because I didn't really enjoy the movie. They took a lot of things out of the movie. But this book, I absolutely loved. Like I said, I read this back in college. I haven't reread it since then, but definitely plan on doing it. This is the movie tie-in version that I picked up from Goodwill. This is really beaten up, because my original version that I had, I lent out to a friend, and they never returned it. But I wanted this in my collection, so I saw this one super cheap at Goodwill and ended up getting it. But hopefully, someday we'll get a very nice version for my shelf, because a 99-cent Goodwill beat-up version just isn't cutting it, because, like I said, one of my favorite books of all time, so it deserves kind of a better copy on my shelf, I guess. But either way, if you haven't read it, definitely check it out. I really love kind of the culture and the world, and the writing and everything is just very beautiful in here, and the storytelling and everything. I know some people may find it a little problematic, but I personally really enjoyed it and am recommending it to you guys. The next book is a standalone. The author uses this character in a lot of different books, but they all end up being standalones kind of. But that is Angels and Demons by Dan Brown. This book I absolutely loved. The book that follows Dan Brown's character Robert Langdon, who is the main character in the Da Vinci Code. People obviously know more about the Da Vinci Code. But this one is, I believe it's the first book with Robert Langdon in it, if I'm not mistaken. I absolutely loved it. It's this chase, and oh, it's just so wonderful. It's so hard to explain because there's so many things happening in this book. But he's kind of running around Rome, I believe it is, trying to find a bunch of clues and this mystery that's going on with like the Pope. And I absolutely loved it. It was so fast-paced, so awesome. I don't know. I don't think I've talked about this on my channel because I read this one years and years ago, but is still definitely one of my favorite books, and I don't know if I'll reread it, but I still really loved it. The next book is one that I know I've mentioned on my channel before, and that is 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. This is a story of this family in this fictional town named Macondo, and kind of everything that's going on with them. This is literary fiction. It's just absolutely wonderful. Another one of my favorite books of all time, like I said. I know I've mentioned it before, so I really won't go into much detail, but like I said, it's the story of this family. If you guys like kind of a little bit of historical fiction, a little bit of magical realism, it's got it's a small touch of magical realism in there. Definitely check this book out. I absolutely loved it. Just read it if you haven't. And the next book is one that I know I haven't mentioned on my channel, and that is Under the Dome by Stephen King. Now this book is insanely large, and obviously a lot of you guys out there know about Under the Dome because of the TV show that was out. And this is basically about a town that one day gets covered in this invisible dome, and all these people get trapped in this town, and everything that kind of happens, and nobody knows where this dome came from, how to get rid of it, and then a lot of things start happening within this dome because now they're all cut off from the world. The police can't really get there. There's no kind of law or anything anymore within this dome, so people kind of start taking things into their own hands and kind of start becoming the law. And it's just, it gets crazy because, you know, people start kind of taking charge that shouldn't be taking charge because they feel like they're better than everybody else. A lot of things happen in here. There are multiple point of views, a lot of characters, a lot of messed up things going on in this book, and I absolutely loved it. Like I said, go into this one cautiously just because it's so huge. So if you are intimidated by giant books, I don't know if you could try it on an audiobook or something, but this is a chunker, and this is the paperback version, and it's still a huge version, so you can just imagine how big the actual hardcover was. But definitely one of my favorite ones that I read. I believe I read this one 2 years ago or something, but I really enjoyed it. And the last book I have to recommend for you guys is Velocity by Dean Koontz. This is the first Dean Koontz book that I ever finished, and the book that kind of cemented my love for Dean Koontz and his writing. After this, I only wanted to read Dean Koontz. Like I've mentioned in a lot of my videos before, Dean Koontz is my favorite author. I absolutely love this book, and this is a very fast-paced book with a lot of things going on. I will briefly read the synopsis on the back. It's just kind of like a little note, a little hint kind of to what's happening in this book. And it basically says, if you don't take this note to the police and get them involved, I will kill a lovely blonde school teacher somewhere in Napa County. If you do take this note to the police, I will instead kill an elderly woman active in charity work. You have 6 hours to decide. The choice is yours. So that got me hooked immediately. It got me intrigued on what this book was. I absolutely ended up loving it. I gave this book to my wife later on, and she doesn't really read thrillers and stuff that much, but she absolutely loved it too. And like I said, this cemented my love for Dean Koontz, so it holds a very special place in my heart. Him being my favorite author, and this is the first book that really got me into his writing. I just absolutely loved it and had to mention it in this video. So yeah, guys, that is it for my standalone recommendations for the month of March. I hope you guys enjoyed them. If you guys have read any of these books, as always, comment down below, gush about them, let's talk about them, and I hope you enjoyed this one. I will see you guys all next time.